fighting, peacekeepers will not have the capacity to protect the people. And that is why we fought hard for the Security Council to accept that what we need in these situations are peace enforcing and counterterrorism operations that should be led by the African Union and with assessed contributions covering 75% of the costs. So we recognize that when we talk about protection of civilians in situations where there is no peace to keep, peacekeeping is not the adequate formula. Now, then we have another kind of questions, which are the questions related to the protection mandates of UN agencies, namely of UNHCR. I can tell you that when I was a Commissioner for Refugees, we had several situations in which the right of non-refoulement was violated. UNHCR has not the power to avoid it, because obviously UNHCR has only international law supporting it. And as we know, international law is many times violated. But what I can guarantee is that UNHCR will maintain a very active advocacy, and in those situations, in my contacts with UNHCR, they have been strongly denouncing any forms of non-refoulement, which means any situation in which someone that is entitled to the right of protection is sent back to a country where they can face persecution.
Okay, colleagues, let's speed it up. SG, may I suggest that we take all of those hands so that we can respond comprehensively, so that we can speed up the time. So Zianda, Nelly, colleague and Faith, let's go.
Thank you very much. It's Zianda Ngobo from Newsroom Africa. SG, I wanted to know, I mean, this year we've seen over 60 countries hold elections, and you know, in most of these countries you've seen almost a pendulum swing in terms of the politics there. There's right-wing nationalism. Do you believe that you are going to lose the fight in terms of being able to get and operationalize that loss and damage fund when you have countries like the US who are basically denouncing, the president denouncing, you know, green energy, for an example, and in particular, you've been confident about Africa actually getting that permanent seat on the UN Security Council, just the direct link between the current people who've been elected to govern their countries and the ability of the UN to be able to effect some of the decisions that they've wanted to take.
In addition to the loss and damage fund, which I think was the central part of your question, I've been strongly advocating to find innovative sources of financing. And we have given several examples. A levy on the production of oil, a levy on maritime transportation that has meaningful emissions, the same with air transportation. On the other hand, putting a price on carbon and using the price on carbon as a way to help finance the loss and damage fund. I would like to see the loss and damage fund with some innovative forms of financing based on decisions that are taken and can be implemented, and not only dependent on the goodwill of donors. Because we have seen that the goodwill of donors is very limited.
Hello, Secretary General. I'm with Reuters. You've talked about the need for Syria's territorial integrity to be restored, but Israel has already been advancing further into Syrian territory, and Netanyahu has said that the Golan Heights will remain part of Israel for eternity. What are your views on that, and how do you see this situation being resolved?
The concept of eternity is a concept difficult to define. The Golan Heights are occupied by Israel, but that occupation is not internationally recognized. And so I would say that eternity would not solve the problem of the violations of the law.
Good afternoon. My name is Saeed from Phoenix TV, China. So my question is, Your Excellencies, the crisis in Sudan is one of the worst now at the moment in the world. And we saw that all the initiatives have failed to address the issue there. So my question here, is there any new kind of approach coming from the UN, maybe with collaboration with the AU? And as South Africa is playing a key role in the continent. Thank you.
It is true that we have seen the paralysis of several of the initiatives that were taken and that have not moved. We are actively engaged at the present moment in trying to make the two sides accept the commitments that they made in Jeddah on the protection of civilians. This is our first priority. At the same time, and in contact with others, we will be doing everything we can to allow for new initiatives to be able to overcome the present deadlock. What is the deadlock? Deadlock is that on the side of Puram, they say we cannot sit at the same level as the RFS because we are the legitimate government and the RFS is a rebel movement. And on the kind of the RFS, they say either we are treated equally or we don't sit together. So this deadlock needs to be overcome. And needs to be overcome with, I would say, some imagination. And we need to work together to make sure that the two sides are able to sit together and to make sure that the two sides are able to understand that we must have a ceasefire, we must have a serious political process.
Daniels, you're the last one.
Faith Daniels from ENCA. You spoke about financial injustice and the legacy of colonialism. And I presume that you are talking about the injustices on the African continent. I wanted to know what your view is in terms of the speed at which redress must come and what South Africa's role should be in that redress as it heads up the G20 presidency.
Sorry, I didn't understand. The speed
of redress, the financial injustices that you were talking about?
I'm a little bit deaf, so. Huh? The speed has been slow. Resistance of different kinds. There is a resistance to transfer of power by those that have a stronger position. There is a resistance of bureaucracies that like to go on doing what they have always done, even when it doesn't work anymore. And there is a resistance many times also of lack of unity in some of the key interlocutors, namely sometimes also in the developing world. Now, what we are witnessing in relation to climate, what we are witnessing in relation to inequality, poverty, and hunger, what we are witnessing in relation to the impact of the consequences of these injustices in peace and security. Look at the multiplicity of conflicts we have in this continent. I think at a certain moment we'll make those that resist understand that if meaningful changes in the sense of justice, in the sense of fighting inequality, and in the sense of offering opportunities to young people everywhere, if those changes are not made, I think our world will know more and more instability, more and more conflict,